Another great guest for you tonight. Stay tuned. You're going to be wowed again this week. And we got a special guest coming at the end of the episode to explain the future of a couple of new and old podcasts coming to you. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Talking Junk. Talking Junk. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Welcome to Talking Junk, the podcast that comes to you live every week with another great guest, another great story, and some insight for that ass. This week is no different. This week we have the author of the book series, What the Fuck Happened? Or rather, WTF Happened. So you can Google search it and it'll pop up on any search engine. We did have a double booked guest episode tonight, but due to unforeseen circumstances, Mr. Walter Blau was not able to make it tonight, so our prayers and thoughts are with him. He had to deal with a urgent family matter, so we'll definitely reschedule and we'll get his input on his podcast and everything that he got going on. But we do have a special guest coming on. I think the person that's coming on has never been on Talking Junk, but has been a co-host on the BreakRoom. So he'll be on later to discuss some of the upcoming things we got going on and what's happening with the BreakRoom. But until then, we have a great guest, like you heard in the intro. Her name is Liz. I told you she is the author of the WTF Happened book series. And let's get it right on, because on top of the book series, she makes it a point in her life to try to debunk some things that are a little questionable in some people's views. Not mine, some people's views. So let's get her on. Liz, how you doing tonight, Liz?
Hi, I'm really good. Actually, it's WTF just happened. I see
Just
that
happened.
it's actually, I don't know why it auto typed in wrong here. So yeah, WTF just happened.
Let's see if I
So
can.
thank you.
No,
Yeah, I think it just did like the auto and I didn't notice. So apologies.
don't
Yeah, for my
worry.
subtitle, I tried to do it right. Hi, thank you. Amazing. Yes,
No
appreciate
problem. That's
it.
what I'm here for. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit
Hi.
about your book series.
Yeah, so it's a combination. I wouldn't say it's exactly debunking. There's aspects of that and aspects of really investigating if there's any valid scientific reasons to think there could be an afterlife, or really any, I guess the typical word to use is paranormal, really any paranormal abilities or phenomena.
Right.
And yeah, so I can go into the whole story of how it started. I consider myself basically an atheist and skeptical. And unfortunately, in 2015, my dad passed, and I just decided to take a shot in the dark, pretty much expecting nothing, and investigate if there could possibly be any valid reason to think there's an afterlife. And both the books are my story. Book one is pretty much 2015 through, I'd say, like 2018. And then book two picks up where I left off, 2018 through like probably like 2021. And then there's going to be a third book at some point, which is 2021 to now. So much
And
is
it's just
happening. It's
basically
crazy.
detailing your journey.
Yeah. Some
Yes.
debunking, some thinking, absolutely changing my mind and thinking there's a lot of valid reason to conclude there's an afterlife.
Now, I did mention to you backstage before the show, I listened to a portion of your friend's podcast, Ghost Daddy, and
Yes.
you were describing the instance when you met him. And he's a psychic medium,
Yes.
and you were very skeptical. so skeptical that you ignored the signs. Now, is it
Yes.
natural for a human being to just ignore those signs when it's something that you can maybe perceive as fake?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it depends on what you're raised with. I mean, first of all, like if you take our perceptions and our perceptual experience, it doesn't make any sense that like consciousness would be anything other than something created by a brain. Like any of our day-to-day, the way we process information, that seems absolutely outlandish. So unless you've been raised to think that, like our general sensory input and interpretations wouldn't think that. So I mean, that's just I was starting to hope that could be the case, that there was some form of an afterlife or continuation of consciousness, because afterlife I think implies you're just here one time and then it's everything afterwards. And it does, I don't think it works like that. But when something seems so impossible, it's not like one or two little things are going to change your mind. Like
Right.
I, yeah, I kind of do stand by extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And to say that like our consciousness continues in forms that don't require a body or brain is probably one of the most extreme claims someone could make.
So, what was the first sign that convinced you afterlife was a viable thing?
Ooh, I wouldn't say it's so many, a buildup of so many things. I can kind of start with the very first thought I had where I thought it might be possible. And because I wouldn't say it was like one, I mean, I guess my very first thought, and then I guess I can share some pivotal things, but my very first thought was, well, if at this point I just thought without a doubt consciousness was created by a brain. And then I thought, so it really came down to basically more like reincarnation was my thought. Because if you take the concept of eternity, and most likely there are eternal big bangs, big crunches, births of universes, and evolutions of like conscious species, like highly intelligent. I mean, you can make the argument whether humans are highly intelligent, but nevertheless, having rich conscious experiences, it doesn't make sense if you think of the concept of eternity, even if it's another trillion years, that another set of like brain neurons would not create someone else that I got to experience being. Like similar to the concept of reincarnation, where you live multiple lives, but without any of the spiritual component.
Right.
So I that was my thought. And then I thought, well, if that's the case, is there somehow, some way, by any mechanism that these memories ever carried over? And I essentially Googled that, and that was the biggest life changer because that was the first valid bit of evidence I found that made me think this could be possible. I found um, doctors Ian Stevenson, who passed away, I want to say like in 2007, and his protege, Dr. Jim Tucker, child psychiatrists, professors at the University of Virginia, and they're studying cases of kids with past life memories and, being interviewed places like NPR and I think Psychology Today. I mean, Dr. Tucker is really being considered very valid. And I just read every single one of their studies and books. And it absolutely, that was the biggest transformative change that something could be there. Plus, once you find one of the serious researchers, you kind of find a whole group of them because there
Right. You
aren't
fall
that many
a
in the
wormhole.
world.
Yeah. Now, once you started your research,
Yes.
I know it's hard to kind of turn that switch off in your brain where you're still thinking about the skeptics of it all. Was there a definitive moment where you were like, no, there really has to be an afterlife if this is happening?
Um, yeah, I'd say there was some pivotal, and I don't think I ever want to turn that switch off. I think it's about intelligently evaluating. And I think if you
Right.
kind of turn it off, you just are going into belief and faith, which I'll do respect if that's what you're doing. But if you're trying to like, if you don't believe stuff and you want to do it really based on evidence, you don't want to do that. So I'd say there were a few pivotal, like, along with reading the data, that weekend that you read about where I met my now friend Joe Peretta, who's a psychic medium and he's studied by scientists. I met a group of psychic mediums that weekend and watched them work. And, not only did I get to know them personally, and once you get to know people, you can kind of see they're genuine, they're honest, it just makes, you kind of can tell that they're not completely deceptive. Plus,
Right.
they
You
were
get the vibe.
getting, yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's not exactly proof, but then they were getting knowing information they just could not have known. And I had some readings myself before that weekend. And I used protocols like fake name, hidden identity, VPN, and they knew stuff they couldn't have known. I mean, some were terrible, but some absolutely blew me away. So that was a huge pivotal moment. And then I also decided, like, that weekend, guests could go up and try to give psychic medium readings. And, like, as a joke, people dared me to go up. So I went up as a joke and was like going to just kind of give fake readings and, very clearly fake. And I started getting real information and I was blown away because it was very tangible physiological sensations. I can't do this 95% of the time, but I did that weekend and I did like another 2 times, which is crazy. So,
So
and it
could it?
was just, sorry.
Do you think that it could be that psychic mediums are just reading recycled energy in the room, and that's probably why you were able to pick it up? The pure connection in the energy was open in the air.
Maybe. I don't really know why. 'Cause I mean, when I've done it, it has been when I'm in rooms with other people, and some are all, pardon me, and they always are other mediums there. I think there's some way, maybe when a lot of mediums are there, there's some, that's a question, you know, I'm just guessing because there isn't an explanation. So if you think that consciousness is not created by a brain, but stored in some energy field, for lack of a better word, or cloud that entangles with a brain for, or body overall for, our human experience, there's some mechanism where it communicates with us. And mediums are better at communicating with it and interpreting it than most people. So there's some way, maybe it was increasing and increasing and it was just stronger. Maybe that's what you meant. I don't know.
Just
So,
more like you tapped into their connection to the energy. That's why you were able to read what they were reading or get off some of the
yeah,
information that was being thrown out. Everything's all in
maybe.
the ether.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, that's the question, the mechanism, how all this works. So that is the main question at this point, or one of the main.
What are some of the more tangible things that you found about it?
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, first of all, just some of the people researching it are remarkable. Like, there's Dr. Bruce Grayson, who is a psychiatrist who works in hospitals. He studies near-death experiences, which I think are just so tangible. Those are people who physiologically die and are resuscitated, and they come back with experiences, and some are verified. I go into the specifics of that, but also just the quality of the researchers. There's two researchers, Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose. They've worked with Stephen Hawking, and they're studying aspects of ways consciousness, like certain ways your brain could work, which, if that's the case, it could make sense how your brain downloads consciousness instead of creates it. It's just when it all starts to come together. So let's see, near death experiences, along with psychic mediums, there's been up to quintuple blinded studies being conducted on them. So it was really reading all this research, then meeting the people, then having these experiences. And I know I mentioned near death experiences, but some have been verified. Would you like me to share like a verified story of one?
Most definitely.
Okay. So Dr. Bruce Grayson, he's also part of the research group at the University of Virginia that Doctors Tucker and Stevenson were part of. It's called the Division of Perceptual Studies. So he was a young psychiatrist, it took him like 20 years of working before he even started researching near-death experiences. He just didn't believe any of it was true. And so, but he'd had a really weird experience in his first year, and he was a young doctor, might have even been in his residency. He was really concerned with like being professional. And so, very sadly, a young girl like in college came in, was brought in by her roommate. She had tried to take her own life, had taken a large amount of pills, and was essentially in a coma. So Dr. Grayson's talking to this girl's roommate. They're trying to reach this girl's parents. Then he goes into the other room. I mean, this girl's not conscious. He goes into the other room, I think, continues to talk or has a conversation with the roommate or somebody in a different room. Then he like is alone in a room, looks down. As I said, he was young. He's trying to be professional. He's so embarrassed because he notices he has like spaghetti sauce stains on his tie. So he's mortified, like tries to wipe it off, buttons up his coat, goes back in, monitoring this girl's brain. It doesn't seem like she's going to make it. Completely not conscious. She ends up getting resuscitated. And when she's conscious, Dr. Grayson goes in to introduce himself. And the girl's like, "Oh, I know you. You were the doctor who helped me. I saw you. I went out of my body. I saw you." She talked about the conversation he had in the other room. She's like, "I went in that room and like floated above." And then she teased him about the spaghetti stain. She's like, "I saw you trying to cover that up." And he was just like, "What the fuck?" And he just sort of put it to the side. And then he heard like a few more stories over his years. And that's when he realized he had to go study this. So that's, one of the stories. And they're just multiple. I mean, I can share stories from my personal experiences. I can share stories I read about, so.
All in its own. Just the simple fact that she was able to see and hear everything that was happening is amazing.
And she's far from the only one. Like when you start studying this, you hear multiple stories like that, as well as things that aren't as verified, but still, interestingly, I think it's vertical because it becomes consistent. People who have near-death experiences, pardon me, have a lot of similarities. They come back, they say they were like going in a tunnel, in a light. They met with guides. They have life. Bless you. They have a life review. I mean, all these significant things, and some others are verified. Like there's something called a peak in Darien, and that's when, one of the things that people experience when they pass away and are resuscitated is they see deceased loved ones, deceased friends. And there's cases, which is the peak in Darien, with in the mix of that, they'll see someone they didn't know was deceased. And out of billions of people, you're going to have some of that. And, it's not someone elderly. It's not someone who was in hospice. Like sometimes it'll be someone young that was really unexpected. So that's just really remarkable.
Now, speaking of young and unexpected, have you come across a lot of children or young adults that have lived past lives?
I haven't researched that personally. I mean, I've read Dr. Tucker's and Dr. Stevenson's cases. And then it's interesting, like when you start talking to people, multiple people will talk about how just things that are consistent, not as strong as, Jim Tucker's cases, but, everyone seems to, a lot of people will share stories, but, I mean, really, the children remembering past lives is very specific research being done by this group. And I can share some of those stories because they're insane. They're just amazing, the ones that they've really studied. If you want me to share one or two.
Yeah, I'd love you to share whatever you know.
Sure. Well, you keep me on for 10 hours. There's so much out there. It's so fascinating. So I'll share
Well, how
some
about
of
this?
what I know.
How about this? Let's keep you on, but before we go ahead with some of these amazing stories, let's just get this out the way and play a word from our sponsor.
Subscribe for more videos.
Don't forget to like, comment, and share.
another one. Gonna have you coming back for more, but go get it while it's hot. 4 sold out in your stores. That Dizzle.
All right. Make sure you go to thedizzlebrand.com and get you a bottle of the Dizzle. It is one of the best, only classified as a liqueur because it is cognac and tequila mixed with hints of mango and citrus notes. So be sure to go now to thedizzlebrand.com and see who and where you can get this most valuable liquor of the year. Liz, just before we went to the quick break, you were going to give us a couple of stories on things you know about people with past lives.
Yes.
Now,
So
don't just limit it to past lives. Why don't you tell us some of your experiences on everything that you've discovered?
sure. I'll go through. Well, I'll start with past lives. And so with that, I'd say probably the case, it's the most famous case because it deserves to be. And it's the case that, absolutely convinced, excuse me, absolutely convinced Dr. Jim Tucker that something was going on. I was going to grab a sip of water. My throat in winter, as always. It convinced Dr. Jim Tucker that something was going on. And my dog just jumped up just to say hi a second. Sorry. He has to be my lap
Don't be
all the time.
sorry.
Okay, well, there's Pickles. So this is the James Leininger case, and it's the most famous case. And it was started with a boy who had memories of being a World War II pilot. So it started with, I guess, when he was very young, like under 2 years old, he started having nightmares, waking up screaming. And his parents would hear him screaming, "Plane on fire, little man go down, plane on fire." And as he was drawing, he'd start drawing like plane crashes. His parents were horrified. They didn't know what to do. And it was a very in-depth case. I can make a very long story pretty short. I mean, some little things that happened was his parents took him to, I guess he must have been about 3 at this point. His parents took him to a airplane exhibit at a little museum near them, and he knew stuff about airplanes. He said that even that the museum had something wrong. It was like a very specific thing about a specific World War II type of airplane. And they researched and found out he was right. And he was like 2 or 3 at this point. No pilots
Wow.
in his family. No reason he would know this. He had these little like army dolls, and they had different hair colors. So he gave them some names. One had like black hair, red hair, and blonde hair, let's say. And so, I mean, it was just constant little things and constant nightmares and constantly drawing plane crashes. And they've just suddenly were like, could this possibly be a past life memory? They found Dr. Jim Tucker. They were actually Christian and didn't really believe in reincarnation. So it wasn't like this kid heard about this and was like, let me figure out who I was.
Right.
So, Dr. Tucker researches, there was something like 100 things that ended up checking out, and they were able to trace him to someone else also called James. And that's interesting because he'd sign his papers like James 3, and his dad was James. He was James, and then he'd been James before, so he's like third
Wow.
James. Yeah, and at first when they said James 3, they thought he was saying like James 3 years old, just because he'd put James 3. They trace his identity. They find some of the people who are in his Air Force troop. They find out like he meets him as a little boy, shares memories with them. The dolls he'd given names to, turned out men had been in his troop. I don't remember if they'd passed away or if they were still living and now like had white hair or bald, but the hair color matched the name, matched like someone, let's say, called one Eric with like red hair. And that was the name, Eric, of someone who had red hair in his troop. So, and all 3 of them matched. He met his sister, who is now like an elderly woman, and like shared some memories with her. I mean, it was just crazy. And that so far is the strongest case, but there are
So he met
multiple.
his past life sister?
Yes.
Wow.
Crazy, right? And there's that case. There's another, like, the Marty Martinson case where, it's another little boy and he sort of has memories of like old Hollywood world. And turns out, I mean, one day he's even looking through just like a random book and his family wasn't involved in this. I think they got the book for him to try to see it. And he's like, that was me. That was me. And he didn't pick some like really star, the way maybe a little kid would if they're making it up. Then they traced this man and it turned out he was a Hollywood agent at the time, and little things matched. Like he'd said, I grew up on this, he said the name of a street and it was like close to the street the agent lived on. Let's see what else. He said, I worked in a job where we gave people different names and the agent, they would give people, this was like a 3-year-old saying that. And, he worked as an agent and they gave people stage names. So it was just, I mean, again, really, I can't do the cases justice if you don't read them. It was unbelievable. He knew how many kids he'd had. He described his old home, So
That's insane.
It's insane.
Now, what are some of the, before I let you plug your book and
of course
your whole message, what exactly is one of the stories while you were doing your research that can stand out from your experience?
Yeah, okay, so mediumship I think is absolutely amazing. So I can first mention some of the medium readings I've had. And just like, okay, so the first one I went to, again, hidden identity, she blew me away. She knew so much. She knew, like, I disguise a few things in my book, so I'm going to give like certain little bits of disguise, but it's going to get the gist. Like, she, like, green was my dad's favorite color. And he had, like, we'd always eat green candies. He had like a little room in our apartment that was painted green. And she suddenly was like, why is he sending me bursts of green? And in the end, I was like, she's like, she just got quiet and then she kind of laughed and she's like, I just asked your dad if he has any messages, like, does he want me to tell you that he loves you? And she said, he just laughed, said no, she knows what I think of her. And he used to say that. I used to be like, love you, Dad. And he'd be like, okay. And I was like, what the fuck? Wait, I said I love you. And he's like, yeah, you know what I think of you. It was just, she got his personality. It was unbelievable. She got facts. I've gone to others that have gotten names. I've also caught fraud. So which also validates, I think, my ability to assess. Like, I went to one of those ones, different types of fraud. One of those ones that like offers the $5 palm reading and then tries to sell you candles. Cause I was like, maybe this is exactly the same. Maybe there's a way they all fool you. But it was a completely different experience there from the get-go. The information was very general, absolutely nothing like the ones that were accurate, And then there's some that I think are honest, but just not that accurate. So I've kind of seen the full gamut. I went to a seance too, and that was clearly, it was fake. So just to kind of explain that I, am able to assess.
Have you ever crossed paths with Robert Ginsburg?
He's like my dad, practically. We're so close. Yes.
Is he?
Yeah.
I had him on the show.
No way. Shut up. Yeah. He was like, that event I went to, that was the Forever Family Foundation that he runs. And sadly, his wife, Fran, passed away. And she was like my mom. I like so close with both of them. So I love that.
I would honestly be so honored if I can get you both and Joe on the show at the same time.
I'll do it. Yeah. That'd be so fun.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Oh my God. I would love that. So
I'll
tell them both.
Yeah. Just once you reach out to them and they're down for it, just you have my calendar link. Let's make it a thing. And we'll wipe out the time slots and we'll give you guys the full hour, maybe 2 hours, and we'll make a thing out of it.
That would be so much fun. Yeah.
It's such a small podcasting world.
It is such a small world. It's so funny. The second person randomly asked me if I knew him, I'm like, yes. So
It's that episode is one of my favorites. It sticks out in my head.
Oh, he's so smart. He was been such a mentor to me from my early days. So he's really amazing.
It's hilarious that you know him, because once I figured out exactly what we were going to be talking about, his episode just flashed in my head, and I needed to ask the question. So
Yeah.
we definitely need to set something up. But right now,
Yeah. I'll message him.
before I get too gushy into the how good this episode is going to be, let's finish out this good episode, and I'll
Sure.
give you the floor, and you can tell the viewers where to find your book, what your book is all about, and your whole message.
Sure. So, I have two books. The first, both, WTF Just Happened. The first one is WTF Just Happened, A Sciencey Skeptic Explores Grief, Healing, and Evidence of an Afterlife. Book two, WTF Just Happened. A Sciencey Skeptic investigates even more evidence of an afterlife and fights for justice with her dead dog. I should remember my own subtitle, but I have to look back to read it. I have a podcast, WTF Just Happened, all about the afterlife, no woo. And essentially, my message is, especially for those in grief or have death anxiety, that it's not, you don't have to have faith or believe in God or anything. I mean, if you do, that's great, but then you're probably not, in as bad a place thinking there's nothing. I mean, not to say that grief isn't brutal, no matter your beliefs. I don't want to minimize, but nevertheless, you do have a type of hope that I think people who think there's nothing don't have. So, regardless of your beliefs, there is just beliefs not required. There's this huge tangible amount of evidence to think that our consciousness and personality just continues in so many remarkable ways, that there's just so much more to the universe. And, you know, so this is my whole story of how I went from thinking there's zero chance of an afterlife, or a better word is continuation of consciousness, how it got me through my grief, a lot of misconceptions of grief. Our society's really bad about it, really minimizes it. And so it's a combination of the evidence and the amazing people I met along the way. He mentioned Bob, Joe, that medium, the friendships, and kind of, despite the topic, it's actually really funny because it's I'm just so awkward as I'm meeting these people and keep trying to catch them cheating and think they'll cheat. So, and you can find it all at my website, which is wtfjusthappened.net, and that links to all podcast apps and all stores where you can get my books.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
I want to thank you again for coming on, and honestly, we most definitely have to set something else up. We have to get
so fun.
Your amazing stories and
Mhm.
just your insight on the whole matter, and to have your mentor on with you, I know it's going to make for an amazing conversation. So,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would absolutely love it. Thank you so much.
thank you. The pleasure was all mine, and I forgot to ask you to do one thing for me. So, if I may put you back on solo layout,
no problem.
Can you please tell the audience, thank you for tuning in to Talking Junk?
Thank you for tuning in to Talking Junk.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm trying to get all the guests to say that. That way, at the end of the year, I can have a whole montage full of you guys. It's going to be amazing. Thank you very much again for coming on. Let me close this out with these viewers. And if you want to stick around, you can stick around and we'll shoot the shit for a little bit. Sure. That. All right, I'll see you in a second. There you have it. Like I said, every week we're going to have a great guest for you. We've been doing this for the better part of 4 years. I did take about 6 months off last year, so I'll say 3.5 years. But we're going to keep rocking and rolling, man. This is what we do. We sit here, we talk junk, and it may not even be junk to you, because I know it's not junk to me. None of these episodes are. All of these episodes keep a close, personal niche in my heart, because everybody said this couldn't be done. You couldn't have a podcast where you just talk about everything and anything and have every different type of walk of life of a guest on this show, from actors to authors to priests, shamans, as you can see, medium debunkers, and we've had mediums on, and we've had psychics on, and we've had wrestlers on, we've had rappers on, producers. Any and every walk of life that you can think about will be here every week on Talking Junk. And just to make sure you know that the network is going to keep growing no matter what setbacks we have. I'm going to bring that special guest on for you right now. And I do believe this is his first time on Talking Junk, though he's been on other podcasts before. Maj, what's going on, bro?
What's up, brother? I'm here. It's just I've been on one episode.
Have
One
you?
episode. Yeah, just one. I forgot the name of it. But yeah, we're gonna be running this wrestling roll up.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's what's coming on. That the weekly roll up should be rolling out on the 7th. We're
yes,
gonna do our first little live wrestling podcast because what else can we do? I've been contemplating on this this whole wrestling podcast for a while. Everybody
yes.
seems, especially my wife, they seem to think that this is going to be the one to skyrocket where we're supposed to be. So let's go ahead and do it. But a lot of people not only are wondering what we're going to talk about on there, which I'll give them a little preview after this.
Yes.
They want to know what's happening with the break room. What's
We could make I'm hoping what the initial plan were what you said was we'll probably just do one episode a month.
right?
We'll try to
Quality
see.
over quantity. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Make sure
And
everybody's there. Get these episodes sewn in tight. No more half-assing it. No
yeah,
more.
having 3 guys here, 5 guys here, 2 guys there.
Right.
We're trying to be more organized and more compact and
Get the
bring
full break room, the full view, and the full vision of what it's supposed to be.
yeah. I have high hopes for this roll up segment of Talking Junk, and I'm hoping that it blows up. And I'm really interested. I'm getting back into wrestling myself when it comes to information wise. But I know a lot about wrestling.
But
Pretty
bro,
much.
nowadays wrestling is at its most highest forefront it's ever been. There's so many companies out there, and they're all eating. All of them are in the spotlight. And
Yes.
just today, just to show you guys a little bit of what we're going to talk about, TKO, the parent company of WWE, they just bought the rights to Lucha Underground. So for those of you that don't know, Lucha Underground was a weekly episodic, almost like a novella type of wrestling show. And it had, if you go on that show and just watch a couple of episodes from any season, you will see more than a handful of today's stars on that show. So, excuse me. Damn, excuse me. There's speculation that WWE will bring it back in some form or concept. And
Hopefully.
to me, I kind of like it, but to me, it's kind of racist. You know what I
Why,
mean?
why would you say this? I like the concept because there's so many wrestlers out there that want the opportunity, and those are like outlets to get that opportunity for these younger wrestlers, these athletes that want to partake in a more
Right, but they have
professional.
their shows that will be focusing on the younger talent. Like they have
Okay.
LFG, Legends and Future Greats. They still
Okay.
have NXT. So they
Okay.
have the branding for the younger talent. This
Yeah.
show to me sounds like their answer to CMLL.
Okay.
All the Lucha Libre and stuff. They're gonna put all of their Lucha Libre style wrestlers on this brand.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
but these lucha libras, they have a lot of talent that's being bypassed. Like people don't understand the talent that's in lucha libre, like especially Mexican wrestlers. They have a lot of talent. They just don't have the exposure. That's
Right. You're absolutely right.
yeah.
But what do you think an off brand of another show is really going to give you them exposure? I do have high hopes that they'll execute it more like NXT rather than a main event or a superstars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want it to be Sunday Night Heat. You'd rather it be more like a SmackDown.
That's old. So then, yeah, you're right. You have a point there. And maybe if they could just shift the quality of the outcome of how they, what they're trying to, what's their agenda. Maybe if they shift the agenda a little bit, maybe then they could use it as a better stepping stone, right?
Honestly, Lucha Underground is, to me, where WWE wants to be. They were ahead of their time.
Okay.
They were more cinematic, and WWE wants to be there. They want to be in their cinematic era, which is what they should be claimed to be on now. Switching gears just a little bit, because I don't want to give every little detail of the conversations that
we want to keep some, mystery. We want to keep some mystery to the show.
One of the things that keep weighing on my head is this whole John Cena retirement tour.
Okay. What
They're
about it?
hyping up his 17th world title reign so he can beat Ric Flair's record.
Yeah.
Now, everybody thinks it's going to happen. And to me, I'm voting for the John Cena versus Cody Rhodes WrestleMania match. You know what I mean? For the title. But if it does happen, I don't want Cody to lose. Cody has to win. Cena has to pass the torch. Now, if he does lose, right? Or they cut his journey short at the Elimination Chamber, whichever one happens.
Wait, hold on, because I was disrupted. Who loses? You talk about John Cena or
Cena.
Rhodes? Okay,
Cena. Rhodes can't lose in this scenario. He has to win everything. Okay. So if Cena makes it to Mania and he loses to Rhodes, or they cut him short at the Elimination Chamber and he doesn't win the Elimination Chamber, I want to see John Cena come out on Monday Night Raw and tell the fans he's sorry that he couldn't make history for them. He couldn't break the record. And then he's interrupted
by Rick.
Not by Rick. All you hear is, say his name and he'll appear. I believe in Joe Hendry. The TNA World Champion. Right now, they have a crossover that they've been doing with the company, because secretly along a few, I want to say maybe like 6 months ago, everybody knew TNA was already headed under the WWE umbrella or TKO umbrella, because they changed the name of their pay-per-views to PLEs. That's a WWE thing. Yeah. Now that the contract is there and it's in full effect, NXT and some of the PLEs have been taking advantage of TNA wrestlers and bringing them on the product. What I want to see happen is Joe Hendry come out, tell John Cena he's willing to put his TNA World Championship on the line to give John Cena his historic 17th win under one condition. They do it at WrestleMania. And this will be the first time in history of my knowledge that a world championship not under the WWE umbrella will be defended at WrestleMania. Double history.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. But would it count?
It's gonna count. If John Cena wins the title, right? John Cena will be 17-time world champion.
But I thought Ric Flair has 17.
Ric Flair only if you ask Ric Flair, he had like 21, 22 world championships. Some of them are not recognized. Now, 16-time world champion Ric Flair only held the WWE title once.
That's okay. So it's like what you said. Does it matter what world champion
it matters? A lot of people, a lot of marks, a lot of John Cena haters will argue that, yes, he's a 16-time world champion, but he had the machine on his back, and we were fucking force-fed John Cena for years. He's never went outside of the company and won a title, ever. This, although it's still kind of underneath the WWE umbrella at this time, will kind of solidify his reign as the greatest of all time, because now he's held a championship outside of the company.
Damn. Doesn't that mean that he just lost 17 times?
Pretty much.
16 times?
Pretty much.
But I understand. I understand. You can't hold the belt forever. There's always going to be somebody that's going to come.
Only Roman Reigns can hold the belt forever.
Good. How long has he have it?
It was like 3 years.
Yeah, but Did he beat Hogan by like a day or two? That's it.
I don't even think I gotta. These are some of the things that we're gonna be talking about
Yeah.
every week on the weekly roll up, 8:30 Eastern Standard Times, maybe around 8:45, 9 o'clock if we can get our act together. Right after Talking Junk, which is why I asked Mach to come on so we can kind of give you guys a preview on some of the things that we're going to be bantering about. There'll be tangents, there'll be everything that you know and love from the Talking Junk Network, but it's going to be solely wrestling based.
Yes, sir.
So come join us every fucking week. You heard me?
Let's go. Let's get this roll up. Let's roll it up, boy.
Hell yeah. We gonna keep this fucking content rocking. There's no place we'd rather be than here in front of you, giving you everything that you want. Our smart mouths, our fucking cussing, whatever the fuck you want to say, whatever you come here for, we're gonna keep giving it to you and giving it to you and doing it for your pleasure, baby. We love you. Peace out. Lamb chops. Tell them.
Thank you for tuning in to Talking Junk.